Very good.
Well, I think it's likely that tonight will be a shorter meeting since we are even smaller than our last task force that met at 6. Um, I don't imagine we have any public comment. Is that right, Gretchen?
Correct.
Okay, and then we do not have quorum for minutes. So really the bulk of the agenda is just our continued work around communication planning. Gretchen, I wondered on just kind of diving right into the videos. We had one potential person submit a video idea, right? And then I wrote a draft like sample template script, but I don't think anyone from the commission took us up on that. Is that right?
That's correct. You're tracking. So we would have Aaron's video, and then we also have Ryan's video that Ryan
That we did previously. Yeah.
And then we didn't have any takers on additional videos.
Okay. Well, that's all right. Well, I think we should go ahead and at least pursue Aaron's video. Will you remind us both of what it was in an email a long time ago. Do you remember the experience very much? Or yeah.
I do. In summary, she'd been quite distressed to experience an environment at an agency at which she interned where people were ridiculing a caller. It was a group of people who answered the phones, and then there would be a repeat caller, and there would be ridicule related to gender identity. And they'd initially tried to resolve it and was not feeling supported, and then came to the Human Rights Commission, and we talked through possible pathways, and we located a diversity officer at the organization, and she was interested in pursuing that. So we learned what that looked like, and that involved a written document, and she asked my help, and we sat together and kind of worked on it together. You know, I kind of assisted with that. And then it came to, they wanted to meet in person, and she asked me to come along as a support person for the conversation, and she answered questions. And Linnell's arriving, Linnell Wilcox. Okay. And so it was kind of that process of providing support through the experience at the agency. Hi, Linnell.
Linnell.
Hi.
And
so in summary, yeah.
Had Aaron already written like a draft script of how that would play in a video, or was that kind of the next step for her?
We when I reached out, she really liked the idea and wanted to meet for coffee and kind of talk it through. And so we did that. And then out of that conversation came the video script that I emailed to everybody. So she's kind of talked it out loud, and as I understand it, is comfortable and likes the proposal that's drafted in the email. So it would just be a matter of setting up a taping time.
Great.
Yeah, and I sent a note. I think I don't know if I imagined emailing or if I did email. I need to double check myself, but I feel like I followed up to find out, would the taping be done virtually, remotely, or in studio? And that's where I'm at right now, is trying to clarify how the logistics of it would work. But I'm happy to proceed with getting it taped so that we have a little link.
Cool.
Yeah, be happy to do that. Linnell, welcome. We're on the agenda item 4A on videos right now. We were just wrapping up the video conversation.
I saw that. Thank you.
So our next topic was our HRC 101 meetings. And I think we discussed this at the last broader HRC commission meeting, and that Angelo and Krista were warm to the idea, which is good. What's our next step, Gretchen, in kind of moving forward on that concept?
I think it would be to review and edit the proposed script. We sent that out last month for folks' comments, and so we're just looking for feedback on it. If you like, I think I can share my screen and pop it up real quick.
Yes, please. I remember seeing it. I thought it looked good.
All right, can everyone see? So there's an email draft, like the email would go out to invite folks. And then there's the plan, and it kind of provides talking points to offer. I remember Angelo and Krista asked, like, give me an idea of what you're looking for. So this was an attempt to offer that. And I'm probably scrolling too quickly, so I'm going to start here, and then maybe Mike, if you want to tell me when to move.
I read fast, so.
All right, I see it. Another thumbs up. So then here would be the next part. And people can I mean, it doesn't have to be these people.
Yeah, that's nice.
I think either of you could do these.
Yeah.
I know I'm just a guest, but am I allowed to say anything?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that the sentence that even in times where there's not a remedy, an arrest, or a precise solution, people tell us it's helpful to hear what happened was not okay. And I especially love that sentence when we were doing advocacy against sit and lie. The city coordinated 3 different public forums, and some of the people who were testifying against it, we ultimately lost, but people came to me in tears saying that they felt so touched and terrified that they were testifying and that somebody wanted to hear their input. And they said, of course it mattered that, you know, they were hoping sit and lie didn't pass, but it almost seemed like it was so important to them to be having people want to hear them and listen to them. And they worked up a lot of courage and bravery to do that. And some of them were in tears, like, I finally had a voice. It was heart touching and heartbreaking. And I think your sentence there really captures how meaningful this could be to people. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then it kind of gets into the nitty gritty of the how.
I read really fast. So whenever you're ready.
Oh, I wonder if Deb had, I can't remember, forgive me. I don't think, maybe she did. Lieutenant Aguilar has some remarks to build out the law enforcement section, but I don't think I either don't have them or I didn't do a good job of pasting them into here. So I can get those or ask for them.
Gretchen, can you scroll up a little bit for me?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see. Where was it? I think that's it. Oh, okay, yeah. So I'm looking at we operate from a place of hearing a person and their experience while also allowing room to hear the other entity, a person's experience. The form of objectivity is important for all parties to be heard. I was wondering if we could change hearing to like holding space for an experience. You know, just to kind of be inclusive, that not everyone can necessarily hear an experience. Now that's a very literal interpretation of that word.
I like it. Thank you.
You
Yes.
know, just it's not a glaringly offensive thing, but it might be more inclusive.
Agreed. Thank you. And does that, I mean, yeah, there might be other improvements to that part too.
I mean, it's good. The concept is good. We want to, you know, be there for a person. Like Linnell was saying, sometimes it's just about being there and being there to listen when they don't really have anywhere else to go with what's going on, right? I think that's a huge part of what we do. And it's really, it's not just, you know, physically hearing that person or visually taking in what they're signing or saying. It's also like, I don't know, kind of being a space, kind of similar to the safe space concept we were talking about before, where you can come and you can share this experience and you're going to get a lot of resources and options on what to do with that experience, right? Like, I feel like it's so much more than just, oh, okay, we'll kind of take your complaint and then it's going to go to, you know, our complaints department. Like that's not what we do, right?
Right.
So I would like to capture that as well as we update that language, because I think a lot of people assume it's more what I described of like, oh, you know, I just tell them this thing. But I know in so many cases we've had real things, real changes come out of someone coming and saying, hey, this isn't right, you know, and that's captured a little bit when you talk about informing our work. So I'm wondering if we could expand on that, especially with folks who may not be familiar with what these processes look like and how our work is informed, to kind of spell that out a little bit more so they know that when they come to us, you know, not only are they getting what they need met for that specific situation, but they're possibly expanding something that will help other people as well, right? Like the project with Ryan was fantastic. We were able to really provide some solid resources that's going to help a lot of people. And that person knows that any other experiences they have, they can come to us and get assistance and direction to resources, rather than just, oh, that's a complaint, you know, and it's going to go to an email that somebody never reads or something like that.
Yeah. One of my favorite situations along those lines was, I remember when we had a couple of people come and say that they had been a victim of a bias incident and they did not reach out to law enforcement because they had a lot of thoughts and feelings that how would law enforcement experience them and treat them? And so they held the experience and did not report. And one of the outgrowths of that conversation was they and others joined us in developing a training bulletin and a video that brought local voices to what people would need in those interactions and what would be specific to the population. And it was to me a really cool outgrowth of the conversation, and the people were able to participate in what they would want law enforcement to have and hear. And then they made sure that everyone received that training bulletin and watched the video and had that information. So I liked that. That's an example maybe. Well, good. I mean, I think it's basically, if this looks like a good beginning. We could share it then with Krista and Angelo. And then if folks are ready, we could jump in. I've, with the help of a colleague, located email addresses for all of our partner organizations and loaded them up into MailChimp. So we've got a vehicle for doing the invitation ready to go. So it would just be really a matter of kind of sorry for the quick scroll, like sharing this invitation and picking a date and a time. So I think that's the next step, Mike.
I really like it. I like the invitation. I like the script. I'm glad you got the MailChimp list together. I think, and I think what's nice about it is if Krista and Angelo, for any reason, were not available for one of these, that almost any commission member could pick it up with the way that it's lined out. So that's really, feels really comfortable for me. Anyone else? All right, HRC 101. We're ready to roll. That's
sweet.
I can talk about that as well on the commission meeting on Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Apologies, my kid's doing some whining back here. Dog noises. It's got a lot going on. So then our next, pull it up. Our next question was on regular email communications. And so you're loading in our partner organizations into MailChimp, you mentioned, Gretchen. And we also had some desire, I think, to mail with kind of our broader community, like people who've signed up to get HRC updates, the people who get the agendas and things.
And they're in there too. So now everybody's in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of putting together kind of our first go at a newsletter. And I wonder if there's some synergy with between HRC 101 happening and Erin's story maybe being filmed, that maybe that would give us kind of a template for a first newsletter, which
good
was
idea.
Exciting.
Or maybe we could, whatever our holiday greeting ends up being, that could be
that too.
A fun intro video, to make it more interesting.
I don't know if that's going to happen. I got back from the commissioner that they were interested, but it was like, and how did it go? I think I made a mistake. I had one commissioner interested and I was sort of waiting to see if I had others. And then I went to look at, okay, I better conclude this, and realized it was like the day before the thing. And then I reached out to say, well, can we still get someone in, or are there other times? And then I didn't hear back. So I don't think we're doing one this year, because the date, it was back like November 13th.
Yeah, so I totally forgot to respond to that. So I apologize. I dropped the ball a bit too.
No worries. It snuck up on me too. Like when I went to finally tie that loop, it was like it was too late, I think, basically.
Well, I still think they should rerun our video from last year, because it was awesome.
And we could just use it. I mean, we have it. We have the YouTube. So if you want, we could just play it, we could, I don't know how to make that. That's where we were talking about your skill, Mike, because I don't know how to make a cool MailChimp, but but you know what? What? I have a person who's been helping me out a little bit at the city who might have that expertise. If you don't want to design the thing, maybe I could see if she could help, because I think we just need to load in the content somehow.
Dog really wants to be in camera.
That's what a beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, he's a beauty. Hey,
I'm cracking up. It's great.
Look. Yeah, I think, Gretchen, what we were struggling with over email is that I can't get into your accounts. I could give you some code and tell you where to paste it, but without actually getting into your MailChimp account, I can't really, there's not a ton I can do. So if you've got somebody who can get in there.
Do you have Skype, both of you? Skype will let you share your screen, but you can manipulate each other's screens just like the IT folks do.
Whoa.
That's
You
kind
know
of
what I'm talking
cool.
about?
Whoa.
I think I could probably get Skype. The other idea, Mike, if you said some things in MailChimp language, maybe the person who helps me a little bit right now, because I have the impression she's real good in MailChimp, maybe that could work. If you say, I suggest this, this, and this, maybe that would make sense to her. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I
Well,
could just ask the
ways
communications
we can
team.
do it, but we could just totally take this offline. We don't have to.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
There's a lot of ways we can do it though, and I'm happy to help with
Okay.
little snippets of code or little graphics or whatever you might need for that. But it seems like HRC 101 is kind of our big priority, and then secondary to that would be starting on our email newsletters. And really, for a newsletter to be good, it just has to have kind of a little bit of content to it. So we've got kind of some things in the hopper. Anything else on emails or HRC 101 or videos? All right, well, let's talk student survey. Unfortunately, we don't have much of an update, Linnell. I know this is why you're here. Gretchen and I reached out to Marianne Bradshaw, who was the professor that has helped us with the previous 2 surveys, and we have not heard back from Marianne. So our next step was to see if there might be other programs or professors out there who might be willing to take this on, as well as check back in with Marianne too. So we don't have an update on the student survey tonight, but I wondered if you had thoughts, Linnell.
Thank you so much for even letting me sit in on this meeting. And yeah, I think I'm less interested in invested in the specifics and just more making sure that you understand how valuable I think those surveys are. I didn't know you guys even do surveys. So when that came up last year, I was happily surprised. I found out about it late, and that was nobody's fault, but like my own email, I guess I just wasn't paying enough attention to the city's website because it was definitely publicized. But by the time I heard about it, there wasn't much time to get results. And since most of the people that I'm working with are living in poverty and are homeless, technology just wasn't a thing. So Gretchen was super amazing, made 100 copies of print copies of the surveys. And that just led me to see how valuable the survey is, and also really wishing for it to be more accessible. And I've always come from a perspective of accessibility as far as language or grade level. I didn't think about accessibility in terms of technology, poverty, and that's a whole other area that I never really had to think about. Of course, we want a definition of what discrimination is, but the definition was daunting to many people. It was very educational to me because I didn't realize how many individuals who are in those situations have not completed very much school and have very low reading levels. So just understanding the survey, by the time we got past some of the definitions, then we're into the questions, and we've already lost their interest, especially since they're living in the streets. Cars are driving by, cars are honking, yelling insults to them. It was sadly ironic as we're doing discrimination survey and we're being just surrounded by people who are being so rude and so insensitive and disrespectful to the people that I'm like literally on the ground reading the surveys to. So I don't know what the answers are, but I just hope that you really understand how valuable what you're doing is, and hopefully find ways to make it more accessible to people living in poverty on the streets without technology And if I was just trying to think of, some ways about that, maybe connecting with partners so that partners would have advanced time to sit down with their guests and be able to walk through it with individuals, having an extended time frame because partners are caseloads are incredibly high. So being able to fit in one more thing that matters, but it's going to take some time. So good lead time, maybe having examples of discrimination instead of or in addition to a long survey, a long definition, so that we could kind of opt for, here's a definition of discrimination, but I was losing people on that. So maybe like, have you had people yell at you or walk away from you or not wait on you in a store? Maybe some tangible examples of what discrimination might look like. And maybe, I think some of the questions maybe were more needed for a surveyor, which might be just necessary, but really kind of cluttered the questions. And when you're on the streets and you've got cars driving by and you're wondering, are you going to get to your next meal in time? I think it was a little bit long, but maybe that just goes with the territory. But if you're just aware of poverty, lack of technology, lack of reading levels, some mental illness, as you're working on this, just keeping those things in mind, which I'm sure you guys would, because you're already, your goal is to make things accessible. But this was just an avenue of accessibility I had never even thought of until I'm like on the ground doing the surveys with people. And if you needed people to volunteer to join you when you're doing that, I'd be happy to join in. So, and if you're good to go, that's fine. If you just, want a casual conversation every now and then, I'd be happy to do that. And again, I don't have the answers, but I really value what you're doing. I just hope that poverty and lack of technology could be factored in as people who are most likely to be discriminated against and least able to complete a survey like that.
I'm so appreciative of everything that you've said. I think it's just such an important reminder. One, to just really engage with our partners early on this, because I think it is a special population to survey that doesn't get surveyed properly by anybody very often. So the fact that we had even the 36 that we had on the first survey was huge. I think was a huge thing for that survey and made it more meaningful. I think we should be looking at things like grade level in the writing of questions regardless, because we know that even outside of poverty, that the grade level of reading of just regular people is much lower than most things are written for, especially government things and legal things. It keeps people out. We not totally related to your comments, but we need to be thinking a lot more about languages and what language the survey is available in. So in addition to making it more simplistic, it needs to be available in more languages. It needs to be administered in more languages. So that's another piece. And then kind of like our overall, what I think of as our overall challenge with the survey is really around getting the number of responses up overall. We got some feedback when we were publishing it that it wasn't considered statistically valid yet, that we didn't have quite enough respondents to be considered a statistically valid survey. So I want to make sure that we have that we don't have that hurdle next time. So those are some of the things that are floating through my mind with regards to the survey. Very much in line with many of the things that you said, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on everything that you've said about ways that we can make the survey better for administration. And I think it's going to be about starting early with you and other community partners so that you have the time that you need to get the information from this population.
Thank you so, so much. And if you ever need a volunteer, I'm happy to jump in.
I'm wondering how many of these concerns we could bring, or maybe even include Linnell in our initial meeting with the students, because I feel that, you know, this would be a great learning opportunity for them to understand that when you're working with the public or you're doing market research, it's not necessarily going to be all people like you in the classroom who have access to technology and, you know, at least the privilege to attend higher education. So there's some accessibility there that a person that Linnell is surveying probably doesn't have, right? So I think that would be a really good way to infuse some layers of accessibility and inclusion into the class. I mean, that's a really important part of any class. And here we have a really concrete example of why it's important, why it's needed, and why we have to consider those perspectives. So, I mean, I think we should bring all of our ideas to the table. And, you know, Linnell saying she doesn't have answers, I think that's okay. I think it'd be great to include the students in finding those solutions, you know, and making sure that they're thinking about those things when they're applying their education, right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone has the answers. I don't think there is
Right.
answers, but
Right.
being able to think about some of the nuances that wouldn't come up. It reminds me of an article I read years ago about a school trying to do like really creative lunches for their kids. And it was mostly an affluent school. And they just were so excited that they'd have sushi lunches. And meanwhile, the kids in poverty were like, what even is this? And all of the more affluent students were like, this is great. We have sushi for lunch. And no one had thought the kids in poverty probably have never seen sushi and like, why would we eat this? So.
Yeah, exactly. So considering those different perspectives and how do we, you know, find some solutions, or what are some options that we could create to make sure that everyone's included, I think is really important and really powerful. So thank you.
Thank you. I'd be honored to do any pieces that were a good fit. And you know, just so you know, I'm not feeling like you guys need to rush this. I mean, you guys might be feeling that way, but I'm not feeling like isn't this done yet? I'm just feeling like at whatever point it's right to have it done. I feel like it was a good survey and we learned different things that might be worth considering for more inclusiveness. And you know, if it doesn't get done for another year, I'm happy as long as you guys are considering those things and it's obvious you are. So I'm not like, why isn't it done? It's more like, as you do it, if you need any input, I'm happy to be here at volunteer. I could do any of the work or any of the conversations. I feel like if I'm going to ask for something, I've got to be willing to put my effort into it to whatever extent is useful or appropriate. So
I know I really appreciate that because, you know, your willingness to help out is what kind of bridges the gap between what we can do and what we know and actually getting it out to the folks and getting what they need, right? So I really appreciate your help, and I'm not in a rush either, but I do want to incorporate, you know, as much as I can that you have to suggest and keep working on those solutions. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I agree too. I'm not in a rush. However, we had about 3 years between the first survey and the second survey, and I'd like to close that up a little more so that we have kind of a more regular look at this. It may not be realistic for us to have. In fact, I know we won't have it out in the same time frame as we had the last survey. But what I'm also hearing, and will be a good discussion point with Marianne as well, is that there's a lot of value in us having a long lead time so that we can get in with these communities. So that's just, I think one of the key learnings is that we're going to want to, the next time we do this, just take our time and give plenty of notice and plenty of opportunity for participation. That said, we don't have anything immediate on it because we don't have a student group available, but as soon as we track down some students who are willing to work on this, I love the idea of you participating from the beginning, Linnell. And you know, they made improvements between the two surveys. They made improvements between the 2017 and the 2020 survey based on our feedback. And so the idea is that we'll continue to evolve this and make it better each time. So that's really exciting. This is cool. I'm so glad you came.
Thank you all so much. And
is there anything else we want to talk about with regards to the survey?
I'll work on reaching out to Marianne and other college and university local contacts and see what I can find for some assistance in the area.
Thank you, Gretchen. Well, do we have any member remarks and announcements tonight? Well, hearing none, I think that is our awareness group tonight. We have HRC on Tuesday, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Coming Tuesday. So I will see some of you then. And Lucky will probably still be here sacked out on the
I hope so. I would like to see Lucky again.
He's a good boy.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Everyone.
thank
You
you.
as
Good night.
well.